Hi, and welcome to episode 83 of the Breaking Bio podcast. I'm Morgan Jackson, a PhD student at the University of Guelph in Ontario, Canada.
Hi, I'm Heidi Parker. I'm a postdoc at the University of Texas at Austin, but I just moved to New York City.
Hi, I'm Stephen Hamlin. I'm technically still a postdoc at the University of Southern California, and I just moved to London.
Hi, I'm Tom Housley, and I'm a postdoc at the University of Exeter's Cornwall campus.
All right, now that we got all the officialities out of the way, you may have noticed that there was a lot of still technicalities going on, and by the way, I've moved to a bunch of different places. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is about us. We have no guest. This week, we're going to catch everybody up on what everybody's been doing, because they're moving places and doing new things, and in some cases, increasing their Darwinian fitness. And we're just going to kind of chill. So this one's going to be a little looser than usual.
Darwinian fitness.
It's true. Did you guys know that female PIs, like 70% of female PIs, are married to other scientists?
I did not know that.
Would you have thought it was that high, or would you have thought it was lower? It's lower. I mean, obviously, it's much lower for male PIs.
Yeah, because if we're reading science, then somebody's got to stay home to take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're working 17 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Not podcast.
All we can see is, screw that guy.
Yeah, screw that. You get a hearty round of screw that guy. So.
I missed all that. Can you guys catch me up on that? I only heard the sort of tail end of it.
It was this,
yeah, he said
it was this piece in Science Careers, again, by some Greek PI who was recounting his history and talking about how, he worked 17 hours a day while the little missus stayed home and was a scientist too, I think, but she raised the kids, and it was just this fresh sexist
all I
hell.
thought was like, oh, you're Greek, so you knew you're going to retire when you're 41. Why not work a little bit longer,
I'm pretty sure he's at U of T in Toronto.
He is,
So what? It's a mindset, okay?
I saw the piece from a tweet from another U of T professor who was just bawling this guy out.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of epic, but
I think what's his name? Brian Sybry. I'm pretty sure he wrote a takedown of it saying, my esteemed colleague of this other college is full of shit.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, it was a pretty good takedown piece. Anyways, fuck that guy.
Yeah. I'm just tired of that macho bullshit, approach to science, which comes, I still firmly believe, comes out of the Ponzi scheme nature that science has taken. But, just this idea that you have to sacrifice everything in your life, and you have to work 19 hours a day, and if you ever go home, you're a horrible scientist. Screw all of that.
Yeah, it's like the sacrifices people make, it's ridiculous. No one, if I tell my friends outside of science, like, oh yeah, I've lived apart from my husband for 2.5 years. I've been raising, a baby on my own for a couple months while my husband goes back and forth every few weeks. People are like, oh my gosh, like can't he just get a job there? Can't you guys both be in the same place? Won't your universities make exceptions for you? And I hear this and I'm like, oh, it's not really like that, and people are like, what kind of shit are you doing? You were really smart. Don't you have a PhD? Can't you do what you want? And I think, oh, they just don't, wait. No, you're totally right. But you say this to someone in science, and they're like, oh, man, the baby thing is rough. Yeah, I did that for a while. Yeah, my wife and I were apart for 3 years. It's like everybody else has gone through this, like, hazing ritual, whatever. But I mean, I know people who've said, like, enough is enough,
I did.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into all of this, but now that we're kind of on the topic, Heidi, if you haven't guessed, has had a child recently. Hooray, Heidi.
Yay! His name is Jonah Wallace Parker, and he's 5.5 months old, and he was mentioned in his first scientific article, I guess when he was a couple weeks old. Morgan wrote a really sweet post about it. but someone named genus after us.
Really?
Yes. Parkerola giganteus.
A whole genus? Giganteus.
Yeah. They're in New Zealand. And, Rich Leshan, this really sweet guy, mentioned us and said, on the birth of their son, Jonah, who's 7 pounds, 10 ounces. It was really sweet.
Pretty much the best birth announcement anybody could ask for.
Yeah, and we didn't know about it. He didn't say anything before, and so it was really sweet. But I'm sure he's going to grow up and hate science. And I can't believe how many people are like, oh, what group do you want him to work on? What subgroup? Do you have a subfamily for him already? I'm like, damn, man, I just wanted to do what he wants. He'll also probably hate all of that.
Well, if he doesn't go into science, then maybe he can make some money and prop you guys up at your old age.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be picking cans off the highway.
I think they're calling that crowdfunding these days.
I know. Brilliant. Joe, my husband Joe told me he had a dream the other night, and he's a postdoc as well. I know you guys know this, but not everyone who watches maybe know this. But he said he had a dream, and there were these other people working in the building he works in, and all their clothes were torn. And they said, we're still postdocs. We can't afford new clothes. And he's like, oh my God, like as if this is the worst thing that can happen if you never get a job as a PI. You just walk around in tatters and work in the dungeons.
Was he sure he was asleep?
I was like, need some of the people in your lab, mate. Yeah.
And your baby is objectively cute as well, which is always nice.
Yeah, he's really cute. There's things that when it's your baby, it's quite different. You understand how you get sucked into this. He does look exactly like my husband, though, so people are suggesting cloning and these other things. To be honest, I don't really know what's going on there, but...
What happens when molecular biologists procreate?
Yeah, it totally happens. And it's like, if you know anything about development, the whole time you're pregnant, it's terrifying because everything that can go wrong. I was really sad when he lost the tail-looking part because he looked like a tadpole up until a point, and I was so sad. I was glad. I didn't want him to have a tail as a child, but it was. He was like my little tadpole baby, and then he became a human.
He became a human. That's
just in time.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. So cloning and herpetology together go from tadpole to finally became a human. That's quite an accomplishment.
I had Eric Pianka, the lizard man, sign a baby book about lizards for him. It was really nice. He's like, I don't get asked a lot to autograph children's books. Well, you did say you hoped Ebola would wipe out half the population. I can see how you're not popular with the baby boomer people.
Well, congratulations.
So, thanks.
Since I haven't seen you in that time.
And so now you're living in New York City?
Yeah, so about a week ago, I drove from Texas up to Illinois and stayed with my family for a few days, and then drove up to Texas. And if you haven't taken a road trip for 2,000 miles with a 5-month-old, a 12-year-old Siamese cat, and a Welshman, basically, you should really give it a go. Lots of complaining about the lorries and, the usual stuff.
Which one was the most poorly behaved?
Joe, definitely. But, I'm happy to be back in New York City. It's nice. Plus, Texas summer was that was ridiculous,
Yeah,
that's
I got so tired of
serious
California
heat.
summer.
Yeah, Stephen, now you have the delights of the English summer to enjoy.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? It is fantastic. I love it.
Does your LA gang affiliation then transfer with you to London, or how does that work?
Well, yeah, I'm not really scared of any of the kids around here. I'll tell you that much.
So again, we'll fill in the blanks here. Stephen has recently moved to London and taken the Bloods and Crips with him, apparently. So what do you do?
It's a terrible idea to take both.
Yes, the luggage fees alone. So, sorry, what was your question?
Mostly, what are you doing in London?
Oh God, I wish I knew. We just moved here because Brandy wanted to. She turned to me like 6 months ago and said, "I really don't like LA. Can we move?" I said, "Yes, yes, we can." Immediately. Which actually, I mean, it worked out well because the grant I was working on, you know how NSF and NIH are, the funding was starting to.
3% funding rate?
Yeah, well, no,
it's
actually.
Like 20 people fighting over a $5 bill.
See, the funny thing is my lab had sick amounts of money. Like, the first time I walked into a lab meeting, there was like 35 people there. It was ridiculous. But the grants, some of them were ending and some of them were starting, and the funds were working on one way or another. And if I stayed, they wouldn't pay someone else. So I thought, well, it's a good time. So I packed up ship, and here we are in London. And now I'm just searching for a job, frankly.
Are you searching in academia or outside of academia or whatever may come your way?
For the longest time, I thought I was going to go down with the academic ship. I thought that this was the career for me, and I couldn't do anything else, and I bought into that almost cult-like devotion because science. But when I got to LA, I suddenly, I don't know, I was just standing in the shower one day and I thought, I don't actually have to do this for the rest of my life. That would be okay.
Showering, or you should probably do that.
You're like, I might do this every day. Every day I might take the shower.
Yeah, why do you think I left LA? I was politely asked to leave. It was a visa thing.
Yeah,
no,
you can also stay in science. Academia, we think of it as like this straight line ahead of us, but there are many paths, and you can stay in science and do other things in science besides working 17 hours a day.
Well, I mean, see, that's the thing I was facing, right? Either I tried to make the jump and become a PI myself, which was becoming increasingly unattractive. I mean, every advisor I've ever had has spent most of their life writing grants. My advisor in Sydney, like he would start in January and he would emerge from his office in April. We wouldn't see him for the better part of 3 months.
Yeah.
What the hell is the point of that? I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to take that road, but I've just fallen completely out of love with it. And if I wasn't willing to make that jump, I'm done being a postdoc. Like it's only so long you can do that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm actually searching for data science stuff because that seems to fit my skill set relatively well. But I wouldn't actually, I don't know, like if there was like a professional postdoc role, something with maybe a reasonable wage and better job security.
Like some of the mega labs, if you have a huge lab with a big time person that's got like 20 people, 10 grad students and 10 postdocs in the lab, there are like permanent positions in those mega labs that, pay decently, and you're involved in a project. It's not like you have to be a lab manager and do things like that. But, I mean, one of the problems I think we have is that you only know what's ahead of you. So you only know like tenure track faculty positions. Right? Like there are faculty positions in smaller schools and liberal arts colleges. There are also these like basically super postdocs or junior faculty positions, but we don't know the other career options that are available to us.
Yeah.
So the sort of longer postdoc thing isn't really an option over in the UK because there's a thing where the universities make it so that sort of more experience you have, then you have to be paid more. So after a few years of postdoc experience, it just becomes, well, like the person who owns the grant is like, I could get this person who has 2 years postdoc experience, pay them this much, or this one with 6 years, and then I have to waste another $8,000 a year more. So
Yeah.
just like it ends up with,
because it's commensurate with experience as well here. So I think some people, I think you can make 80 or 90 grand when you're a postdoc, but that's sort of like but that's a junior faculty, you know. I mean, nobody's making that, especially in New York City. You don't start out at like anything as a postdoc in New York City because you're competing with like all these Europeans who want to live in New York for a while. Yeah. That's the thing. If you're a postdoc and you have a family in New York City, you know, there's very few places you can live, like you can afford to live. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the other mega cities that would be almost as expensive, I would imagine, would be London.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's what everybody says, right? But for one thing, I lived in Sydney for 3 years, so London's got nothing on me. I mean, living in Sydney was so expensive. We went to Tokyo, and we're saying things like, "Hey, everything's so cheap here." Like, I thought, "Oh, that's not a good sign." Like, it is expensive to live here, but I really couldn't care less. You know, Cory Doctorow wrote this piece just like a week ago, which is about 2 weeks after I arrived here, and the headline was "Why I'm Leaving London," and the whole piece was about how he's moving to LA, and you know, screw that guy too, frankly, because you know, everything he said in there, I nearly died laughing. You know, things like, "Oh, you know, I found my neighborhoods in LA really walkable." LA? Are you kidding
LA
me?
is not walkable.
No, unless you're the 1%, right? I mean, if you're living in fucking Santa Monica, sure, but you're also incredibly rich, you know. But anywhere you can afford to live in LA, it's not walkable. We tried when we got there. We tried to live without a car. We caved within 3 days. Every other city I've ever lived in, I didn't have to own a car, but LA, it was just impossible.
Yeah.
There was a whole spate of those "Why I'm Leaving London" articles, though, and it's fucking hilarious because it's all people who are like, they're journalists and things. So
Yeah.
and they're all like, "Oh, and I just realized that I could go and live in the country with my family and just, you know, send in my articles from there." And he was like, "Oh, fucking well done. That's not really the options that most people have."
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever anybody else will say, I love London so far.
Would you live in London? I would live in London. But would you live in London, Tom?
I am. No.
Yeah? I mean, everybody has family, different places, and everybody has their reasons. I just wonder about people, you know, like Joe would live in London, for sure. I think he would love that, but my mom isn't in London.
Is your mom in New York?
No, but she's closer.
You know, I mean, that raises a really interesting question about how people are, you know, tempted to go do science in places irrespective of where those places may be. Like, you might get a job in LA or in the Texas Outback or Sydney, and it's a high-profile job, but I mean, there's a big cost associated with that, both, you know, family-wise perhaps as well as monetarily. I don't even know how you would start going about, you know, the cost-benefit ratios of you know, taking that next step.
Well, I mean, LA and Austin aren't that bad. Like, there's some small shit places in the U.S., you know? Like, there are places that maybe you looked at for a postdoc that you're like, what? I can't live there. Like, I don't want to live somewhere where they don't teach evolution in schools, right? Like, Austin's okay, but there are other places outside in Texas where I think it would just freak me out.
I mean, to be fair, all of the places I've worked academically have been pretty big cities. Montreal, Sydney, LA, you know, that's like, I haven't had to do that. I haven't had to move to butthole Nebraska to, you know.
Up next from
this affects
University of Butthole, Nebraska, Steven.
There goes my tenure track position there.
You know what? When that's your college name, it's real easy to pick a mascot. You know.
Okay.
I'm really glad you've moved, Steven. You seem much happier.
Oh, I am, actually.
Also less angry and less like trapped in the bathroom.
You know, I should say, like, professionally, LA was great. Right? The lab I worked with was fantastic, and I got a lot out of the time I spent there. And I know I will not, you know, many people will not share this opinion, but LA is a shit place to live. I hated living there. It was terrible. So yeah, I am happier.
I mean, I think it's one of those things people love or they hate.
Mm.
So you're on that other side, and like, good for you for moving on, right? There's a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I hate it too. How long have you lived here? 7 years, you know? Life is not that long.
Yeah.
I recognize the huge privilege inherent in though, right? Like, I can just, you know, like Tom said, you know, not everybody has that option. I just fucking picked up and moved because I felt like it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to live in LA anymore, so I moved to London. Like, I have that option, and I'm well aware of how lucky I am to have that. And in part, that's actually because of science, right? The skill sets, you know, like, we never really realized this until we talked to the people who were trying to move and things, but being in science gives you that opportunity to move in a way that you don't get with a lot of other careers. Not just I'm going to go to a university to do this, but I have the skill sets to move across national boundaries without really too much challenge.
Like people who are lawyers or medical doctors or nurses or other things, like even state to state, you'd have to take a new exam or new whatever.
Yeah, how much of a cliche is it that, you know, you studied at, or, you know, you're a doctor in some country and then you move to New York and you're a cab driver, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we don't have to do that, and that's fucking amazing. It's great.
I think it's funny as well when you start looking for jobs outside academia, and at first you're like, I can't do anything because all I know how to do is like put crickets in boxes and see what they do. And then you're just like, oh no, I can do like, you know, I can write, I can give talks, I can do complicated statistics, and you've got these huge skill sets that you just kind of take for granted because nobody really teaches you anything. You just have to kind of learn it as you go.
Yeah.
So you don't get like a thing saying you can write stuff now, tick.
I was trying to think of like things I want in a position, you know, still in science. I'm not sure what yet my next step is, but one of the things I thought about was like being appreciated in your job, feeling appreciated. And it's something that I was like, I don't know if I've ever given a shit about that. You know, I would just do my own thing and whatever. But I think in science, you're so underappreciated for so long, you know, because there's so many people in your lab doing the same thing. So it's not really, you know, I'm sure people in the lab are like, oh, you know all the shortcuts with the QIAGEN kits. Can you help? But you don't really feel, you're not like, yeah, you can skip step 7 and 8. You can freeze it down on step 3. A lot of people don't know that. But I don't think that makes you feel good about yourself. And I don't know if that's something that like is something specific to me that like all of a sudden I care about that, or if it's just, you know, science has made me like this for, you know, being underappreciated for so many years.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you get little things like I don't know. I got an email last week from someone I know who wants me to collaborate on something. And I was like, "Whoa, that's fucking cool!" Because it means that someone thinks that I'm good at stuff, or maybe just doesn't really know that I'm not. But you do spend a lot of your time just sitting at your computer, staring at it, going, "What am I doing? I don't know. Does anyone know that I don't know?"
Yeah, because even when you publish, right, you're writing. When you hit submit, you're like, submitted. But no one's like, great job, Tom. Good job getting that out there. And even when it's accepted, like you're like taking a 30-minute break during your day, killing like a half glass of champagne in like a little plastic cup that's still dirty from whatever gross kitchen is at the lab. But what you feel isn't like appreciated or happy. What you feel is like almost like relief. Like, okay, I can move on. I'm not going to check PubMed and see if I was scooped all weekend. Possibly I'll sleep in.
But then I got to check Google Scholar to make sure that somebody cited my new paper.
Right. It's the worst. That's the worst thing ever.
I've had kind of a different experience, and I think I've always thought that in part it's because I'm not that great a scientist, right? And I say that not that I think I'm a bad scientist, but I'm never going to be, leading my own lab with this laser-like focus on a Nobel Prize winning question, because I'm not that guy, right? But especially in the last postdoc I had, I was the guy who solved problems for people, right? The statistical, computational. I've done collaborations because I can just solve somebody's problems with this or that, and I actually did feel quite appreciated for a lot of it. I came into the lab and I helped solve a problem that they've been working on for 5 years. And in 6 months, I knocked out a solution to it, and they were all very happy with it. And I got to kind of dust my hands of it and walk away, and it was fantastic. But it's a trade-off. I'm not that guy who's going to be leading that research group anytime soon. And I'm okay with that, but.
Yeah, I think we need both types of scientists, maybe more so people who can solve problems, right? Because people with big ideas can never get those things to fruition without getting through a lot of problems on the way.
I feel like it's harder to eke out a niche that way, though. I mean, some of the smartest people I know are problem solver types too, but they are constantly jumping from soft money to soft money because they're not, getting the big idea grants and they're things like that. I don't know if it's harder for them.
The funding situation is a joke. Yeah.
We should actually catch up with Tom and Morgan here. We haven't.
Sorry, do you guys have anything? I'm going to check on my baby. Can you give me a second?
Oh, so you don't even want to hear.
She leaves.
Nothing's changed with me. I'm still a PhD student making thesis progress finally, so thumbs up for that.
Are you in year 9 now? Is that?
No, not yet. It'll be 3 years in September. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did we start this podcast at the very beginning of your PhD?
It pretty much started exactly when I started, yeah.
Huh.
It has grown with me, or not grown with me, however you look at it.
You've both stayed at a standstill.
Wait, start over, tell me again. Sorry.
We're just
a little human in the other room, okay? I had to check on him.
No, for Joe.
We're just joking that my career may or may not be stagnating in correlation with the podcast. That's all.
That's not true.
That's not true. I feel pretty good about both.
If you hadn't been paying attention to Twitter that day, your thesis might be finished by now, right?
I'm just going to print out my tweets and just throw them in a book and be like, done.
I was co-advised, and one of my PIs said, before I left UT, and we had a big talk about things and what I was going to do and what I was thinking about. And he was saying, you should really try to get a lectureship while you're there because you're really good at teaching, which I don't think is true, but people just say that. But he was saying that, he's like, look at my lab, I study this. He's like, I touch way more people's lives in the classes that I teach. And he's like, that weird-ass podcast that you do, he's like, you guys probably reach a lot more people that way. And I was like, we don't get a lot of viewers. And he's like, no, think about it. Your impact there is probably really big. And I was like, all I could think of was Sam. Maybe we have a really big impact on Sam.
Hey, I'm not unconvinced that we've had more live viewers than people who've ever read my papers.
Probably.
We definitely have. Yeah. So all the thanks to the listeners out there who are actually, doing more for our podcast than any of the research community has done for our actual work.
Should we tell them to go and read our papers, though?
Yeah. Yeah, go download and cite those. You can find them as well.
The next 12 episodes will just be one each of me reading a paper I've done.
Yeah.
That project's a really good idea, though, because you get the feeling that a lot of the time it's just an echo chamber, like what we were talking about earlier with the guy saying, you should be working 16, 17 hours a day, and everyone on Twitter is always like, oh no, we should be making science better for people's lives, but it's probably just a bunch of us going, yeah, let's not work 16, 17 hours a day, but still everyone else is going, yeah, you definitely have to.
Yeah, you guys probably remember when we had Christy Wilcox on, it goes back even further than that, but, I've always had this feeling that maybe on Twitter we're just talking to ourselves, that it is an echo chamber, like you say. And so I'm trying to quantify that by actually seeing how SciComm tweets spread, right? It's going to be a while before I can get it out of the data, but that is the question I have in mind, and I'll let you know what happens.
Yeah, I'm not as active on Twitter anymore. It has to be like something really big for me to do it. Morgan, you had a really great post the other day. I was driving when it happened. I can't remember what it was about, but you cited. Oh, it was about naming thing after people. If you can sell, sell the idea of name. It was a really great post.
That was me getting mad late at night to a nature letter, and then pissing Tom off the next morning because I used GIFs in it.
It makes it really difficult to read them at work when you've got a new gigantic iMac.
I really like that Tom totally subtweeted me on that too.
I did, and I was just like, was that too obvious? Oh, maybe I should delete that. And within like 3 seconds, Morgan was going, oh, I'm so sorry, Tom.
That was just a side note. That was a really great post. I would love to do an episode about that.
So Tom, what are you doing? We'll finish off with you. We're running a little bit long here, but what have you been up to now?
All right. Well, so I guess it's been about a year since I finished my PhD, and my wife and I moved to Cambridge after that because she got a job working for a pharmaceutical company. So she also decided at the end of postdocing that she didn't want to continue down the academic route, but I found a really great job where it's a company that was spun out from Cambridge Uni, but was bought over by a big pharmaceutical company. So they have the kind of academic sort of mindset, but backed up by real money, which is quite nice. And so I've been in Cambridge for I guess a year or so, and just doing kind of little bits and pieces here and there for different people at the zoology department. So doing things like stabbing flies and making a database. So all the kinds of things that getting a PhD really sets you up to do, and is super exciting. I also got to help Tim Clutton-Brock finish his new book, and I get a free copy of that. So it's all very exciting.
PhD students will work for book.
And yeah, applying for lots of postdocs and getting a reasonable number of interviews, and I finally got offered one, but it's it's pretty much the UK version of Butthole, Nebraska.
It is not. It's beautiful.
Well, I guess I mean more in that it's really out in the fucking middle of nowhere rather than it being horrible. So it's a delightful little place. So the University of Exeter has multiple campuses, and one of them is in Falmouth. So it's right on, if you think of the UK, and it's got like the little weird sort of southwestern foot, then it's right. It's like the toenail on that foot. So yeah, I got offered a postdoc with a guy called Alistair Wilson, who's fucking awesome, which is pretty much the reason why I took it. I'd met him a couple of times, but he was the PhD supervisor of one of my friends, and he's done really great research on mostly evolutionary genetics, but on soy sheep, on race horses, on fish and insects and everything. So Really cool stuff. And so the job that I have is looking at evolutionary genetics of the stress response. So the main thing is really trying to figure out why chronic stress still persists in populations where you'd think if there was genetic variants for this, then it would be selected out. So we've got a couple of ideas of how to test for whether it's maybe a trade-off with being good at responding to short-term stressors, or whether it's maternal effects. But the downside of this is that it's quantitative genetics and it's multivariate phenotypic stuff, so it's super, super complicated, and we have to do breeding designs over multiple generations and stuff, so it's going to be really drawn out and really fucking hard. But it should still be pretty cool. So the downside, and the reason why I went into the detail of my wife's job in Cambridge is so she has obviously stayed there because she has a really good permanent job, and there's not a huge amount down here outside of the university, so we are currently doing very long train journeys to see each other a couple of times a month. So yeah, getting into what we discussed at the start of the podcast, where you give up your family life in the hope of getting a couple of papers out. And I'm currently being paid, I think, less than I was being paid 10 years ago, which is nice. Yay, science.
That sounds cool. And you're not that far away from her.
No, it's a 7 or 8 hour train journey, so it's not too bad.
And because one of you has a real job, it's a little bit easier. No, I mean, also a postdoc is a real job. But
No.
I mean, I'm saying to myself as well. You know, when one person has a secure position that has standard hours.
Yeah, unfortunately, she is being pushed pretty hard. I think because she's really good at her job, then they're like, "Oh, you're good at this. You should spend more time doing it." But to be fair, both her boss and my boss have been really good about us, being a little bit flexible in terms of, leaving on a Friday afternoon, or sometimes I take the train on a Thursday afternoon and just do some writing or some analysis on a Friday at Cambridge, that kind of thing. So it's again, but what I was talking about with the people moving out of London, it is definitely that privilege of being able to just be like, yeah, my job can be done from pretty much anywhere, which is nice.
All right. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up. I think we've aired enough grievances, and everybody at home is caught up on where our live is and maybe is not going.
Simmering rage.
Yeah, exactly. So, everybody at home, thanks for listening through that. It was cathartic.
It's probably good. Yeah, it's probably good for grad students and postdocs who feel this way to know they're not alone. You're not alone.
It doesn't get any better, but that's all right.
It gets the same.
It gets the same.
Yeah. So on that aspiring note,
T-shirt.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. If you've got stories of your own, feel free to drop us a line at breakingbio.com or on Twitter at breakingbio. You can also follow us on Facebook by searching for the Breaking Bio podcast, and we love hearing from you. So if you've got your own super cheerful stories about life in academia or outside of academia, let us know. It'd be fun to hear them. We need to thank the European Society for Evolutionary Biology for continuing to give us some money. So thanks to them for that. And yeah, check us out on iTunes and Stitcher, where you can find all of our past episodes. Thanks to everybody at home. Join us next week when we have a new guest. Well, an actual guest. And it'll probably be less jaded. Maybe.